I was born and raised in Lake Champlain, and I had always heard stories about mysterious creatures lurking in the lake's depths. However, being a rational and skeptical person, I had never given much thought to these legends. In fact, I had often found the locals' obsession with Champy to be a hilarious gimmick to attract tourists to the area. Vermont's baseball team is even called the Vermont Lake Monsters. I always found it ridiculous, but now I'm a strong believer and advocate for Champy. I had recently returned to Lake Champlain for a family reunion and had decided to spend some time on the lake as I used to as a child. I brought my kayak and set out to explore the quiet and serene waters of the lake. Little did I know that my routine kayaking trip would soon turn into a terrifying encounter. As I paddled my kayak through the calm waters, I suddenly heard a loud splashing noise coming from the water nearby. At first, I thought it was just a school of fish or a group of ducks, but then I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. Standing just a few feet away from my kayak was a large, serpentine creature that resembled the classic image of a sea serpent. It was at least 30 feet long and had a smooth, dark greenish black body that glistened in the sunlight. It had a large, snake-like head that bobbed in and out of the water, and its eyes were a bright and pierced yellow color. I was terrified as I was watching the creature glide past me, leaving a large wake behind it. As it swam away, I could see its powerful tail propelling it through the water. I couldn't believe my eyes, but I knew that what I had just seen was real. I returned to the shore and immediately shared my experience with my family, who were all shocked and fascinated by my story. They told me they had always heard similar stories about Champy from the locals in the area, but had always dismissed them as a mere legend, as I had. As the days passed, I became more and more obsessed with the creature I had seen. I spent hours researching similar sightings and stories online, trying to make sense of what I had witnessed. The more I delved into the subject, the more unsettled and frightened I became. I knew I had to find answers and seek help, so I contacted local marine biologists and researchers. Apparently, I was far from the first person to contact them about an encounter with Champy. They were skeptical of my story at first, but eventually agreed to meet me and hear my story. During the meeting, I explained to them that I had seen and how it was similar to several accounts of the lake monster I had came in contact with. They also shared their own research on the lake's ecosystem and the possibility of undiscovered creatures in the area. They eventually concluded that the creature I had seen was either a log or a new and previously unknown species of water serpent. They said it was probably not Champy, but admitted that Lake Champlain was large enough to host a variety of different creatures, including undiscovered ones. The possibility of the creature I had seen was real and not just a legend was both exhilarating and terrifying. It was a reminder that there was still so much that we didn't know about the planet we live on, and the possibility of encountering the unknown was always present. As the days passed, I slowly began to come to terms with my encounter and the realization that the creature I had seen was real. I also learned to accept that the lake held many mysteries that were waiting to be discovered. Seeing Champy with my own eyes left a lasting impression on me, and I found myself more open to the idea of the unexplained and the possibility of encountering the unknown. I left Lake Champlain with a newfound appreciation for the mysteries of the world and a sense of wonder about what other secrets the lake held. In the weeks and months that followed, I continued researching the creature I had seen and shared my story with others interested in the unexplained. I also began advocating for protecting Lake Champlain's unique ecosystem and the creatures that called it home. I wasn't the only one to do this. There are several towns and states that have passed resolutions to protect Champi. Back in 1981, the town of Port Henry in New York made a bold move by declaring its waters a safe haven for Champ. They recognized the importance of preserving the creature's habitat and ensuring that it was free from harm. The following year, in 1982, the state of Vermont passed the House resolution to protect Champ as well. This was a huge win for people who believed in the existence of the creature and wanted to see it safeguarded. In 1983, both the State Assembly and the State Senate in New York also passed resolutions to protect Champ. This was a major step forward in the fight to preserve the creature's habitat and ensure that it was able to thrive in the lake. These resolutions not only helped protect Champ, but also raised awareness about the importance of preserving the natural world around us. It's a reminder that we still have much to learn about the mysteries of the world, and that it's up to us to protect and preserve the creatures that call it home. I could nerd out about the specifics all day, but I'll stop there. Looking back on my encounter with the creature, I realized that it had opened my eyes to a whole new world of possibilities. There were still so many mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and I was excited to be a part of that journey. My encounter with the creature debunked my skepticism and reminded me that the world was full of surprises. I also realized that local legends and myths often hold a kernel of truth and are worth investigating, rather than simply dismissing them as superstition. Growing up in Alabama, I had heard many tales of strange creatures lurking in the woods, but I had always dismissed them as myths. My spouse and I were both excited to explore the wilderness and spend some time away from the stresses of our daily lives. And of course, celebrate our new life together as husband and spouse. I work as a software engineer, and my spouse is a nurse. We were both in need of a break, and we couldn't think of a better way to relax than spending our honeymoon in nature. One night, as we were sitting outside the cabin, we heard a strange noise in the woods. It was a low, guttural growl that we had never heard before. We both stood up and tried to see what was making the noise, but it was too dark to see anything. We both decided to head inside after a little while. We didn't give it another thought that night. The next day, during breakfast, we were discussing what kind of animal it could have been, and curiosity got the best of us. We decided to explore the woods to see if we could find any clues about what had made the noise. We walked for several hours, enjoying the peaceful surroundings, but we found nothing unusual. On the second night of our honeymoon, we were sitting outside the cabin again when we heard the growling noise once more. This time, it was louder and more sustained. We decided to investigate and walked out into the woods with flashlights. In hindsight, this was probably foolish, but we are both adventurous by nature. As we walked deeper into the woods, we heard rustling in the bushes. We couldn't see anything, but I got the feeling something was watching us. That's when we saw it. A huge, tall, beastly creature stood about 50 feet away from us. It had long arms and legs, covered in white fur, and glowing red eyes. We were both terrified. Neither of us had ever seen red eyes like that on anything before. It really freaked us out. We slowly backed away from the creature, but it followed us. It seemed curious, but not dangerous. We didn't know what to do and felt trapped. The thing could have easily killed us in one swipe if it wanted to. We were both scared, and our hearts were racing. We didn't know what the creature wanted, and we were afraid that it would attack us. As we continued to back away, the creature started to approach us. It was getting too close for comfort, and we were afraid that it would attack. But just as we thought it was going to pounce, it stopped and looked at us with its glowing red eyes. I grabbed my spouse's hand and sprinted towards the cabin. When we got back to the cabin, I looked back, assuming the creature was right on our tail, but it was nowhere to be found. My spouse wanted to go back out and try to make contact, but there was no way I was going to let either of us get near that thing. We were both confused and didn't know what to make of the creature. We decided to do some research and found out that it was a rare and elusive creature known as the White Thing, or Albino Bigfoot. We reached out to a highly reviewed wildlife expert we found on the web, who confirmed that the creature we saw was indeed a white thing. He explained that the creature was not known to be dangerous and that it was probably just curious about us. He explained that the creature was a solitary animal that lived in the woods and was rarely seen by humans. He also told us that there were few documented sightings of the white thing, but that it was known to be non-aggressive and typically avoided human contact. After our encounter, my spouse and I had a newfound respect for creatures that live in the wilderness. We realized that there was so much about the natural world that we didn't know, and we felt lucky to have witnessed something so rare and unique. We never saw the white thing again after that. We spent the rest of our honeymoon exploring the woods, enjoying each other's company, relaxing, and the peaceful surroundings. As we left Alabama and returned to our daily lives, my spouse and I couldn't stop thinking about the white thing. We felt grateful to have had the opportunity to see such a rare creature and were left with a sense of wonder and awe. We continued to research the white thing and other elusive creatures that lived in the woods. We shared our story with family and friends, and it became a topic of fascination and intrigue. Looking back on our encounter with the white thing, my spouse and I both agreed that it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We felt lucky to have witnessed something so rare and unique, and we knew that it would stay with us for the rest of our lives. Our encounter with the white thing opened up our eyes to the mysteries of the natural world. We realized that there is so much that we don't know, and there are still many secrets waiting to be uncovered. We felt lucky to have been a part of that journey, and we look forward to exploring more of the world's wonders in the future. I live in a small town in Tennessee where everyone knows everyone. I've been making moonshine for over 20 years, and I'm known for having the best recipe in the county. But I'm sure, as you know, making moonshine is illegal. So I must be careful and keep my operation hidden. I was checking on my still one afternoon when I noticed something hovering in the sky above my property. It was a strange-looking balloon-shaped aircraft that I had never seen before. I immediately became suspicious and started to think that it might be spying on me. The aircraft was hovering silently in the sky, and I couldn't see anyone inside. I was spooked, to say the least. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. I walked around my property to get a closer look at the aircraft. It was a strange shape, almost like a giant balloon with a gondola attached to the bottom. The aircraft continued to hover above my property for several hours, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't stop looking up at it. I didn't know whom to turn to for help or what to do. I decided to call a friend who worked for the local police department, and he came over to check it out. You know what they say. It pays to have friends in high places. When he saw the aircraft, he was just as puzzled as I was. As the day wore on, the aircraft started to get closer and closer to my property. It was obvious that it was deliberately trying to spy on me, and I was starting to get nervous. I started to worry that the aircraft might be some sort of government spy device, and that they might be coming after me for making moonshine. As the aircraft got closer, I could see that it had some sort of camera attached to it. I knew that if it got too close, it could be dangerous. I decided to call the FAA to report the strange aircraft. They were just as puzzled as I was and said they would investigate. A few days later, 2 men from the FAA showed up at my property to ask me some questions. They took some photos of the aircraft and asked me if I had seen it before. I told them everything I knew, and they thanked me for my cooperation. They told me that the aircraft was a type of drone used for research, and that it had been flying in the area for several weeks. They said that it was not spying on me, but rather studying the environment. Although I was relieved to hear that the aircraft was not spying on me, I was still suspicious of the government's intentions. I wondered what else they were studying and what else they were keeping hidden from the public. After the FAA investigation, the aircraft never returned to my property. I went back to making my moonshine and tried to forget all about the whole incident. But the experience had me left with a sense of unease and distrust for the government. I couldn't help but wonder what else the government was keeping from the public. It made me feel like they were always watching and monitoring us, even in the privacy of our own homes. It was a chilling thought. I started to do more research about government surveillance and the use of drones for spying. It opened my eyes to a whole new world of secrecy and surveillance, and it made me question everything I thought I knew. Looking back on the encounter, I realized how easy it was for the government to keep things hidden from the public. The incident taught me to be more vigilant and aware of my surroundings. As a moonshiner, I'm used to operating in the shadows and keeping things hidden. But the encounter with the strange aircraft had made me realize that there were even darker forces at work, ones that I couldn't even imagine. It was a sobering thought, and it made me question everything I thought I knew about the world.